Okay, is this on? Is it working now? Can you hear me? I'm telling you, Mercury isn't even retrograde yet, and the amount of technical difficulties that I've been having just to get this video up alone has been incredible. Hello, my loves. Welcome to Align, your astrological wellness podcast. I'm your host, Paul Galoro, and we're talking about the astrology for the period of July 29 to August 11. Now, there's quite a bit of stuff that's happening, but I'm going to focus on just a few things. Number one being Mercury retrograde. Now, my loves, I know when you hear Mercury retrograde, two things are going to either happen. You're either going to roll your eyes and be like, oh, this guy talking about that again, or you're going to be like, oh my God, no, why? And I just have to say, we don't need to freak out about Mercury retrograde. Yes, sure, there might be a delay. Yes, sure, something may break down. That's no different than any other time in our life, right? It just might be more likely during this period. But all of that aside, all of the oh my gods and the breakdowns and the et cetera, all of that aside, Mercury retrograde is a time for reflection. I notice myself, I can feel a shift within my body. I feel a shift in the way that my mind operates. I notice that, to begin with, being neurodivergent, my mind, there, it just happened, but my mind can sometimes go all over the place. During Mercury retrograde, it often depends on what's happening in the sign. It can make my neurodivergence worse, meaning I'm jumping from thought to thought, or sometimes it actually helps to ground me. But I get ahead of myself. I'm talking about things all over the place today, but Mercury retrograde is our main focus for this podcast, this episode anyway. Before we get into it, a few quick announcements. A couple of weeks away from CanFit Pro, the biggest fitness conference in Canada and the world, actually. It's the global conference and trade show happening at the Metro Toronto Convention Center. Go to canfitpro.com. You can check out the trade show, or if you want to join in any of the educational workshops, I'll be leading two of them, one with my dear friend Claudia Miko, and another one on my own called Arise and Shine, talking all about the importance of why you want to spend at least the first hour of your day in self-care and contemplation. Now, speaking of Arise, my program is going strong. We are almost at 700 episodes of Arise. I think we're going to get that. We're like 20 episodes away from 700, which is super exciting. And if you'd like to check it out, if you want to check out an episode, join me for a session, me and the rest of the Sunrise Social, for 30 minutes to start your day with intention. So Arise actually looks at the astrology of the day and puts it into action and helps us prepare ourselves for it. But we're not always looking at the astrology, but even when we're not, we are getting our body ready with movement. I'm incorporating somatic movement, some yoga. It's not anything intense. It's just movement to lubricate our joints and get our muscles ready for the day. We do visualizations and meditations to help set up our mind for the day. And, some days we choose a tarot card, some days we watch a video. It's all about self-care and getting you ready to live your life and your day with intention. So if you want to check out a session of that, hit me up, check out the link in the show's notes to join me, and I will send you all the information. What else can I tell you? We're about 6 weeks away from my Italian retreat. I cannot wait for that. My first group that I'm bringing to Italy since 2019. If you want to check that out, and also if you're not on my newsletter, sign up for that, because 2025 is taking us to a whole new destination. My friend Annabella and I have something in store for you. We cannot wait to share. We haven't even officially announced it yet, and we are nearly sold out. So stick around for more info. I mentioned it last week. I'm not going to give too many more details. Portugal 2025, that's all I can tell you. But more information is coming out soon. So my loves, here we are. We're talking about the astrology from July 29 to August 11. Now we start off this period, the sun is in Leo. So we are in the season of self-expression, of creativity, of leadership. I am a Leo myself. And if you're not a Leo, that's okay. This season is still for you. We celebrate because all of us have all the archetypal qualities within us to a certain degree. We celebrate all of us in every season. In particular, with Leo season, we're looking at the ways that we express ourselves. We're looking at how we express our creativity. We're looking at the way that we lead, how we are the light in our world. Leo is ruled by the sun. So you want to think of how the sun just shines. It doesn't ask any questions. It doesn't care if you like it or not. It just shines and expresses itself exactly as it is. So that's what we look at within ourselves during this period. But another interesting thing just to keep in mind is that the sun is source of light and a source of life. If the sun didn't exist, life on this planet would not exist. So we also look at the things that light us up, the things that give us life, all the ways that we shine in our lives and in our world. This is what this season is all about. And we actually, this period that I'm talking about, July 29 to August 11, we kick off this period with a new moon in Leo. That happens on August 3rd. And so what this is, we know new moons are time for setting intentions. And we want to set those intentions in the mansion or the season that the full moon is happening, or sorry, the new moon is happening in. So the new moon's happening in Leo. We want to set intentions that are related to how we express ourselves and the creativity that we have and how we allow ourselves to express the uniqueness of our authentic self. During this period of Leo season, but specifically around the new moon, so we're talking like August 2nd, 3rd, 4th, you might even feel a surge of confidence and a desire to be seen. It's also a time that encourages us to explore creative endeavors. This is a time for you to zoom in on your passions and to step into your own power as the leader of your life. Now, oftentimes when I talk about leadership or being a leader, people think of, somebody standing at the front of a crowd and telling everybody what to do, or being an influencer, or whatever we think of when we think of leaders. But when we are the leader in our own life, that shifts things completely. You don't need to be in front of a million eyes to be the leader in your own life. But how do you step into your life? How do you move in a forward direction in your life? These are all ways that you can look at how you are a leader in your own life. And this is the time to do it. So set some time aside, August 2nd, 3rd, 4th, to stop and think of the ways that you are the leader in your life. What is your vision? Right? That's another thing that we want to consider too, because then when we know what our vision is, we can step into it. We've got the light that's illuminating everything, and we can do the work needed to make it so. Now, I'm talking about the light aspects of Leo right now. So all of the, what some people might label as positive or beneficial aspects of Leo. But just as there's yang to every yin, there's, light to the dark, there are shadow aspects to Leo that we want to be mindful of, because when not in check, we could lean into we could move into the shadow aspects of Leo during this time, which would be not so beneficial. So what are these shadow aspects? Well, let me ask you this. What happens when your desire to be seen and your confidence comes from a place of fear or a place of lack? Well, then you get neediness, you get attention seeking, you get arrogance. So these are the things that we want to be mindful of during this period of the new moon, but also all of Leo season, is that we don't slip into our fears. Leo rules the heart. And so Leo is all about joy and love and connection and expression and fun and playfulness. And so when we're not leading from our heart, then we're leading from a place of lack. We're leading from a place of fear that then can make things like arrogance and neediness and attention seeking that much more likely. So slow down, really step in, sink into your heart, feel yourself in your heart, then lead from that place, seek the attention from that place, desire to be seen from that place. And now stick around to the end of this video, because I'm going to share with you some ways that you can make the most out of this new moon in Leo. But I want to move forward because, I promised you we're going to talk about Mercury retrograde. So we got the new moon in Leo on the 3rd, and then Mercury goes retrograde on the 4th. So I want to break this down with you because I think Mercury retrograde is a wonderful time that when we use it to our advantage can actually be really beneficial in our lives, just in terms of how we're moving forward with our life. But something to note is that Mercury retrograde, yes, it happens for a period. And in this period, Mercury is retrograde from about the 4th to about the 6, 7, or 8 of August. It depends on the time zone. It also depends on when Mercury is actually stationing. I don't know why I don't have those dates here. But there is sort of like 3 phases to a Mercury retrograde. Because the way it works is Mercury is moving over a part of the sky, and he's always moving forward, and he's going over this point of the sky in relation to where we are in the world, and it looks like, or in the solar system, and it looks like he's going over this one area, and then it looks like he slows down and begins to move backward. And that backward period is actually the Mercury retrograde period. But he's already crossed this part of the sky. And when he's moving forward, it's called the pre-retrograde shadow. So when he first enters Virgo, he's going to be retrograde in Virgo. When he enters those last few degrees of Leo, then goes into those first few degrees of Virgo in his pre-retrograde shadow. So remember, this started back on July 17th. Everything from July 17th to August 4, he is moving forward, but toward about July 30th, Mercury actually, it looks like he slows down. And then it looks like he turns around and goes backward. And that period right there, from like a couple days before, as Mercury is starting to slow down, to a couple days after, once he starts to pick up his speed again, that is the most challenging time, where you might have the miscommunications, or you might have the forgotten appointments, or you might have disruptions, or the interruptions, or the delays. So be prepared. I say circle July 1st to August 10th. You want to make sure during that time that you are very clear in your communication, that you check, double check, and triple check every plan that you make, every email that you send before you hit send, every text message. And if there's something that I can offer you for a Mercury retrograde period, practice impulse control. Sometimes we can be impulsive, and sometimes we think this needs to be heard right now, and we, need to send that text right now. And then maybe after you think about it, you're like, oh, I shouldn't have sent it. Or maybe you get another piece of the story and you're like, oh, I shouldn't have sent that text. So practice impulse control during this time, because it is very important. Aside from that, what else I can offer you about Mercury retrograde is to use this as a time for reflection. And so when Mercury is retrograde, we want to look at the sign that he retrogrades in. And we also want to see, his relationship to the element and the sign. And if he maybe was retrograde in this area when he was at retrograde in this area last time, what it was like, that might give us some insight. We also want to pay attention to the period before and the period after, because everything from July 17 to August 4th, anything that happens from the point of our communication, technology, any of the thoughts that we think, our mindset, any snafus or any road bumps that we encounter during that pre-retrograde shadow may offer us some insight as to what could be the challenge while Mercury is retrograde. So Mercury retrograde, we think of Mercury in astrology, we think of Mercury from a psychological astrology perspective. We think of Mercury turning inward and going into the underworld or the subconscious mind, right? So if Mercury rules the mind and our thinking mechanism, when he's retrograde, he goes below the level of consciousness. And that's where we might trip up, or that's where something that we stuffed down, that we thought, okay, I'm not going to deal with this, so I'm going to just hide it away. Sometimes during retrograde, that stuff comes up. And so anything that comes up in terms of miscommunication, arguments, confusion, anything related to that showed up from July 17th to August 4th may come up to be dealt and handled or cleared off once and for all during that retrograde period. There's a second shadow period that happens after Mercury is retrograde, known as the post-retrograde shadow. And that's where kind of everything gets kind of wrapped up. So if we think of Mercury retrograde, those three phases as a 3-act play, you've got the first act that introduces the drama of the play would be. And then the second act is where like the stuff happens. That's where the conflict comes up and is dealt with and hopefully resolved. And then the third act is the wrap up, is the, okay, all of that stuff happened. Now, how am I going to integrate this into my new consciousness, right? Because Mercury dipped into the subconscious. Remember something, or you recognize something is brought up, and then we deal with it. Hopefully you're not stuffing it down. That's why we like to use our self-care and our self-inquiry practice during this time really wisely, because it can help reveal things for us. And then that third phase that will go from, like I said, Mercury going direct on August 20, usually about 2 weeks after that. I don't have the specific dates. I'll have that for you in the next episode. But from the 28th onward is when Mercury kind of, and where we want to integrate the lessons that we learned in Mercury retrograde. Because then once Mercury passes that retrograde shadow, he's in a whole new territory, and we can do anything. It's like I wouldn't equate it to a whole like new moon experience. We are stepping into this changed because we were unaware, became aware, and then healed to release. Now, I did mention earlier that we want to look at the sign that Mercury is in for a little bit more information of how this might land for us, or what area in our life we might pay attention to know where to look and to reflect during Mercury retrograde. So we look at Mercury itself. As we know, Mercury represents our mind and our voice, how we communicate, the thoughts that we think, the words that we use to communicate, not only with others, but with ourselves. And then we have Virgo. Virgo, an earth sign, a mutable earth sign, is the sign of practicality and precision. And Mercury actually rules Virgo. So he feels at home here. Virgo likes order. She likes details. And there's also a healing quality to Virgo energy. So know that anything that does come up in your awareness, anything that does come up that kind of throws you off, is coming up to heal whatever is in the subconscious mind that is not allowing you. Now let's go back to Leo. That's not allowing you to fully shine bright, right? Because at the end of the day, we are still in the consciousness of the Leo mansion during Mercury's retrograde. Though the sun will move into Virgo toward the end of Mercury's retrograde cycle, I see all of this coming up so that we can be more authentically ourselves. So I said Mercury feels comfortable here in Virgo. It is true. But while Mercury in Virgo, because again, Virgo likes precision. So Mercury in Virgo, our mind is sharp a little bit more. We can focus our attention to practical matters a little bit more. But while Mercury is retrograde, things might be a little bit more bumpy and turbulent than usual, right? Because imagine Mercury he's just kind of focused inward. He's not really paying attention to anything in his external experience. He's internal. And this is what kind of happens. This is often what happens with people during Mercury retrograde, as we use it as a period of reflection. We do turn inward. And if you're not paying attention to the outward because you're so focused on the inward, there might be an instance that we bump into something, right? That the Mercury retrograde mishaps that come up. Those are those things when we're kind of turned inward and not really paying attention and in harmony with our environment. Mercury in Virgo is very analytical. So with him being retrograde, he likes to go inward and examine the unconscious mind and analyze it. Like, what's going on under here? What's happening? This is an opportunity for us with this Mercury retrograde period to examine everything that's going on under the surface and how it affects everything else, right? Retrogrades tend to bring up past experiences, old anxieties, or old negative self-talk, especially things that we haven't completely healed, right? Virgo has a healing element. So if we haven't healed that wound, if we haven't healed that old thought, and that's what's standing in our way from being our most vibrant, authentic, unique self, think the sun. When that stuff comes up, we examine it in order to heal it and release it. Because then once it's released, we integrate the lessons and our new way of being into our life and then move forward. Now, the thing is, Virgo, being very analytical, also likes to, perfectionist. That word may or may not have been used to describe the Virgo. So just remember that there is no such thing as perfect, but there can be something that is perfect for you in the sense of how you do things, what works for you in terms of your routine. So just keep that in mind. Virgo being a perfectionist, we know there's no such thing as perfect. This does give us an opportunity to look at what's not perfect, what's not working, come to a place of acceptance and compassion for it, and that's where the healing will happen. Now, it is said that Mercury retrograde and earth signs tend to be a little bit more stable and grounded, but because he moves from earth, Virgo, back to fire, Leo, and then back to earth, there might be some bumpiness. We might start off feeling grounded, and then all of a sudden, once Mercury's back into Leo, there is potential for more dramatic, passionate ways of communicating before we go back into that more grounded aspect. So just, I said all of that stuff right now about Mercury retrograde. Don't freak out. Do not freak out. This podcast is not to freak you out. It's to empower you. It's to empower you to know that there is potential that things may come up. And when things come up, they're coming up so that you can heal and release to then move forward and continue being your fabulous self. So that's the Mercury retrograde period. So I kind of covered that entire period. Remember, as I said, the first couple of days before Mercury goes retrograde and couple of days after Mercury goes retrograde, the most of the mishaps may happen. So just be mindful from July 31st to August 10th. That might be the most challenging. That might be where you need to be the most prepared. So just do your preparatory work now so that during that time, all will be well. So that I talked about August 3rd, new moon in Leo. August 4th, Mercury goes retrograde. August 5th, Venus enters Virgo. Venus in Virgo is a perfectionist. She likes things in a particular way. This, I think, will be very grounding for us while Mercury is retrograde in Virgo and then going back to Leo. So once Venus enters Virgo, even though Mercury is already going to be retrograde and basically not moving at that period, my sense is that there is going to be a grounding that's going to happen. And Venus being in Virgo will also support in understanding ourselves a little bit more through this Mercury retrograde. Then what happens is on the 7th. So remember, Mercury was moving forward. Venus was following behind him. So our head was in the lead and our heart was slowly catching up. Then Mercury goes reverse retrograde on August 4th. On August 7th, Mercury and Venus will meet up again. So we've had this a while ago. I talked about, I think it was the last episode or the episode before, where Mercury and Venus came together just before they entered Leo. Now they're going to cross paths again outside of Leo while Mercury is going back into Leo. And it's almost like our head and our heart have a conversation. So watch through August 6, 7, and 8. What's going on between your head and your heart? Now, your mind might be a little scattered because Mercury is retrograde. So we want to lean more into the heart space and get our heart to inform our head a little bit. But what'll happen is on the 7th, they'll meet. Mercury will continue to go backward. It's almost like they have a conversation, and Venus, our heart, says to Mercury, hey, you forgot something back there in the Leo mansion. Leo mansion rules the heart. So you got to learn something heart related. So go back and get it and then meet me down the road and we'll see where you're at. And so Mercury will go back and Venus will move forward. And now our heart is in the lead again. So this is why I really encourage you to sink into a self-care practice, lean into it, because it will help us connect to our heart more. Right now, our mind is in focus. Mercury is, well, it's in focus in the sense that we're a little bit more heady because Mercury is retrograde, but we want to sink down into our heart and remember our heart space, because that's what's going to help us get through this Mercury retrograde. So once Venus and Mercury meet up, heart is in the lead, and we stay connected to our heart to help inform our healing process while Mercury is retrograde. And then Mercury will go direct on the 28th of August. I'll talk about that in the next episode. Now, I did say stick around because I want to talk about the new moon in Leo. Leo is a fire sign, so I invite you to do two things on those days and dedicate them specifically to setting intentions in the Leo mansion. Move your body. Get outside, feel the sun on your skin, feel the warmth, connect to that solar energy that way and receive it. Receive that solar energy. The other thing that you can do is work with the element of fire. So it's summertime. You can go outside. If you have a fire pit, light a fire, maybe throw some, write on paper the things that you're letting go of, the things that are getting in your way of shining brightly. Write them down on paper and throw them into your fire pit and just watch them burn. That's your way of setting an intention to let go of those things. And then the flip side of that, write down all the stuff that you want to welcome into your world, because write it down and then feed it to the fire, because then the fire will eat it up and disperse that out into the universe to then make it come toward you. So movement outside, spend time in the sun, and also do a little fire burning ceremony. Get rid of the stuff that no longer serves you, write it down, throw it into the fire. If it's getting in your way of you being confident and shining brightly, you don't need it anymore. So chuck it, and then burn the things that you don't need, and then write the things that you do want and give it to the fire as an offering to send it up to the universe. So that is our episode for today. I know I went on quite a bit. This is a longer episode. I thought, oh, we're only going to talk about this one thing, Mercury retrograde, but there is so much to it. My loves, bottom line though, don't make a big deal about it. Don't freak out about it. And in fact, approach this as what could happen? What could happen for me that will help me just be the best version of myself that I can be? So I love you. I want to also, before we go, I just want to thank everyone that's been sending me messages. Bren sent me a message of one of the last episodes, and she said how aligned, just everything that I talked about in that episode really resonated with her and helped her in a moment that she's having. And then I've also been getting messages from so many others. So thank you so much for sending those. I love doing this, and just knowing that you're receiving it and knowing that it is supporting you in a way means the world to me. So please keep those coming. Like, subscribe, share this if you found it helpful, and let me know what you think. Share in the comments, whether you're listening to this or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can just put a comment down below, or if you want to send me a message on any of my socials, you're welcome to do that. I'd love to hear from you. So my loves, that is it. Happy Leo season. Happy Mercury retrograde. Remember, we don't freak out about it. We step into it confidently. Lean into the confidence of Leo season. Step into that Mercury retrograde period confidently. And I will see you in 2 weeks. We're going to talk about the last bit of Mercury's retrograde period, his post-retrograde shadow, and what's coming up in the fall. So I love you so much. Have a beautiful retrograde period, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.